sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, and this is East Coast Sports Investors, The Closing Bell, Friday, January 14th, WildCard Weekend, as we get you closer to tip-off, face-off, and those games that will be starting tomorrow in the NFL and all through the weekend, Sunday and Monday. Been a crazy, crazy day here at ECSI as the breakfast bankroll rolled in with Bernie Fratto at Fox Sports Radio. An amazing, amazing morning with him. Stories upon stories and some great inside information from Vegas on this weekend's games and leans that Bernie had. Then the midday market report from the Windy City. Our friend Riley Magnuson talking some cheesehead football where they were off this week, but some insights who he's looking and hoping to play versus who he doesn't want to play. And some leans there in the WildCard Weekend and some NBA action as well. And now tonight, our second show, The Closing Bell, where myself and my co-host Scott Webb will break down tonight's games from start to finish. What I like to do is I like to take the numbers from last night, and that's why we have the breakfast bankroll to see where some overnight movement is and where they are released to the public to the midday market report, where we can see some moves from the public, some reverse line movements, some steam in ETC, and now to the closing bell, where we're getting closer. It's 4:38 Eastern time, a couple hours till the first game in the NBA and NHL, and maybe some previews for the weekend in the NFL. So without further ado, my co-host from the Palm Tree State himself, the one, the only, Mr. Scott E. Webb. Good afternoon, Scotty. How are you?
I am well, Jeff. Good afternoon to you, my friend.
Well, let me just give you a quick weather update. We started with some heavy wind and rain, and it's now going to get cold enough to turn to sleet and ice, and then maybe about 3, 4, 5 inches of snow. So you can have your 80 degrees, your palm trees, and enjoy yourself.
Well, what's wrong with that? I will tell you, and maybe we'll get into this. I did a write up and I did JB's show, and we talked about the Bucks game, and maybe we should get into that some because I want to share that information here. I don't want to share it nationally. I want to share it so that the people that listen to us and the people that are loyal to us get the inside scoop on some of this stuff that is probably more of a national problem than it is really a local problem when it comes to the weather and some of the things that are going on here in Tampa. So maybe we'll get into that, maybe after we go over the NBA or whatever today or whatever, whatever games we're going to deal with.
So last night, whatever you want to call it, was our debut of the closing bell. And we broke down some NBA. And as we were closing the show, I talked about the NHL last night. And there were some big, big high numbers. And we're not going to release a minus 225, 250, 300. There's a minus 600 tonight in the NHL, which we'll talk about there. But, I was looking for some value in some of the puck lines. And I just wanted to go over last night in the NHL here as I scroll through. We had a closing number of Carolina minus 270. They lost 6-0. Tampa Bay, your Tampa Bay, who, by the way, there was a 40-cent reverse line movement on them last night. The money started to come in on Vancouver, and you won 4-2. Okay. The Bruins puck line. Big favorite, Tuca coming back. 2-0 lead, by the way. They win 3-2. Okay. You're starting to see a trend here, by the way. Nashville closed at minus 345 against Buffalo. They lose 4-1. Chicago, there was some good money movement on their puck line. They win 3-2. Calgary closes minus 275. They lose 4-1. Okay. Pittsburgh minus 142. They lose 6-2 at Los Angeles. and the Rangers, who were minus 135, 1-3 to nothing. So my point here for this quick little sermon and speech was it was definitely dog day in the NHL, and it didn't matter how you sliced it. Again, you don't want to be betting minus 200s, 245s, 250s. We talk about that a lot in Major League Baseball. So what do? You go to the run line. You might be able to extract some value there. You can turn a minus 170 or 180 in a hockey game to a positive, a plus 120 or 125 on the puck line. Don't put the bankroll at risk at minus 180, yet get the plus money, but it's not just win, baby. You need some help, whether you blow them out and win by 2, 3, 4, 5 goals, or you get that empty netter. So that's just my quick oversight and review on last night in the puck land and the frozen pond, as we like to say. Scotty, any thoughts about last night? What you saw, what you talked about, and then obviously the final results.
Yeah, well, we talked a little bit about that Golden State Milwaukee game, and the line was moving, and it moved up in that game, and we talked about the total. So that total ended up being 224.5, it looks like, and it opened at 223. And I said about that game under. That game ended under. Golden State didn't score 100 points. We talked about how Golden State has been in kind of a funk, and then they turn around and they got that same situation going on again tonight. So what are you going to do with them tonight? So anyway, that was one of them. We talked about that Brooklyn game, and we talked about how many points is Kevin Durant worth. Well, I can tell you he's worth a bunch of points because they got blown out by Oklahoma City last night. And it's one of those scenarios here where, holy cow, it was interesting to see that. And then that Portland and Denver game we talked a lot about, because Portland, we didn't know who was even going to dress for that game. And they threw a number out there at minus 10. It got bet up to minus 11, and they won by 32, for God's sakes. So that's what happens when you can kind of figure out who's playing, who's not playing. And, we talked a little bit about strategy yesterday in terms of when to bet. And one of the comments I think either you made or I made was, these numbers don't come into play all the time. And in looking at the NBA numbers yesterday, for example, not one of the numbers came into play in all 5 games. So when you start to think about your betting action, people want to talk to you about CLV, right? The closing line value. They want to beat that closing line value. I don't really give a shit if you beat that number or you don't beat that number. You need a winning ticket. And your winning ticket is, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to those who are CLV people, because CLV is an important thing. If you theoretically beat CLV most of the time, you should have winning situations. However, that doesn't guarantee you anything. And if you follow the steam yesterday, you were in trouble in the NBA. And it sounds like you're when you were talking about the NHL, you would have been in trouble there too. So just remember, guys, that you got to watch the game at the beginning of the game. You select the games that you want. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I selected in the NBA this morning, and I ixnayed a couple of those and added one for what I'm looking at this afternoon. So it all changes, and it's all variable based on what the lines do and where they move. So you got to read them and understand them, and then kind of make sense out of what's going on around you.
Shout out to Billy Hewlin, watching right now from Louisiana. Thank you, Billy, for all your love and support. We love you back. You brought up a good point, Scott, and it's funny is when I finally put my head down, whether it's 1 a.m., I take a snapshot of all my screens for what the numbers are when I put my head down, and I get up bright and early, take another look, and then when they move. So I get a feel which way maybe some of the sharps came in and bought some of these games before they release them to the public. So I might have a list of 8, 10, 12 games. And then we come on at noon with the midday market report. And like you just said, well, some of those start to gain too much steam. It's too heavily public. So then we just cross them off. And now we're here at the closing bell. And as you said, we might have added one or two, and then we've taken 3 or 4 off, or we got them highlighted because the game doesn't start till 9, 10 o'clock at night. Guys, listen, if you got 5 games on your board, okay, this is a good lesson here, okay? If you got 5 games on your board and you start the day 3-0, you know how hard it is to win 3 units in one day? If you could win 3 units every day, you'd be sitting at the Bellagio and sleeping at the presidential suite, getting fed grapes at the pool. Okay, you'd be ringing a bell. So if you start the day 0-3 and you still have 2 more games, well, going 0-4 and 0-5, it's tough sledding to catch up to the rest of that week, especially on a Friday when you got Saturday and Sunday. So here at ECSI, last Saturday, 138 college basketball games. Okay, so we use a spaghetti strainer. We sift, and we might break down the 12 to 3 o'clock games, might release 1 game there. And then we might release 1 game between 4 and 7, and then maybe have 2 late. Just because there's 138 games doesn't mean you have to play 138 games. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is if you got 5 games and your bankroll's tight and you're a little skittish and your last 2 games a little lenient, just play the first 3 games. See how the night's going. If you go 3-0, the odds of going 4-0 and 5-0, oh, God bless you. I mean, that's a hell of a day. And as we speak, Bradley Beal is out quarantined for the Wizards as we speak. That just came across our desk from Don Best. So again, that's called money management. It's called discipline. So what Scotty just said, and I'm trying to add on to it, it's part of the game. It's part of reading the board, not just at 8 in the morning or 12 o'clock or now at 4:49 Eastern time. It's a process, and you got to trust your process.
Yeah, and the more you do it, the more you trust your stuff, and that's why you have to get into that rhythm. Because if you're not into a rhythm of knowing what you're looking at, then you don't know what to do with it. And that's the major thing, right? Information is just information unless you can do something with it. And that's where we come into play is we kind of know what to do with some of the stuff we're seeing. So anyway, I just think that if we can steer people in the right direction, meaning that, look at the numbers in the morning, look at what happened where they opened overnight, look at why the market moved the way it did. And then look at it again in the afternoon and kind of get an idea of what's going on. And numbers move, like yesterday in the NBA, they moved because Durant sat out and they moved because Portland didn't have anybody to play. So today they might be moving because of other reasons. They're not necessarily moving because you got a star player sitting the bench today. You just talked about Bradley Beal. Well, Washington's not playing today, but that's a good note for tomorrow. So, that's one of the things that you got to kind of look at and kind of understand is there's a reason why things are the way they are. And I'm hoping you'll tell me, because I didn't do the research on it. I'm hoping you'll tell me why there's a 650 money line spread in the NHL tonight.
Well, I would have to say that there has to be a COVID-related guys out. Listen, I know they're a great team. They're a team that was favored and still favored to win the cup this year with the Avs. But listen, when you look at the mentality and say it's just one game, it's 60 minutes of hockey, or it's 48 minutes of basketball, it's just one game. I mean, there's no one on earth that is going to play the Avs minus 650, and they'll probably win 8-0. Well, you get people trying to play the puck line, which is probably around minus 225. The fact of the matter is, you just laugh, you cross that game out, and then you just follow the scores, and you root for the dog. Or if you had some cojones, you put $20 on the other side, and you get yourself a hell of a score.
So here's the reality of that game, and this is what people don't understand. When there's a money line, and you can do this with spreads and anything else too, but when there's a money line like that, that turns into an implied probability. So this is where I talk about poker all the time. So minus 650 is an implied probability of 86.67%. I just put it in the calculator. So it's 86.67% that team is going to win. So what is it? Colorado tonight, right? So Colorado. Colorado is 86.67% that they're going to win that game. So what does that tell me? That tells you that if you bet that 100 times, 13% of the time, Arizona's going to win that game. So is that game tonight? I don't know. Do you want to bet that game that way tonight? If you're going to bet that way, you got to bet that way 100 times because you're going to lose 86% of those games. You need to win the 13% so that you can at least break even. And if you won 15% of those games, then you're going to come out ahead. So that's where you have to understand what implied probability means and how that works. Because over the course of time of your bets, right, we make all these bets and we have rules to how we make bets. You and I talked backstage yesterday about the 12 commandments and stuff. You got to understand that whatever format you're choosing to wager, you need to make those bets over and over and over and over and over and over and over for the probabilities to come into to fruition, right? So let's just say every time you got a 600 minus 650 game, you're going to take the underdog. Okay, in 100 of those bets, the most you can really expect to win is 13 of those games. But if you do win 13 of those games, the payback is going to be enough to cover most of what you've spent out. But if you cover 15 of those games, you're ahead. But you have to bet it 100 solid straight times that way to get that probability right. What you're going to find is there won't be minus 650 hardly ever.
And I'll bring up one quick story and we'll get to tonight's games. One of the companies and spreadsheets that we use loves its baseball, and it's all contrarian. It's all big dogs, and they're looking for that probability that you're talking about. So in their inauguration, their first season that I followed them, I think they had 300 wins and 360 losses. Okay, so that was 660 games. And they had 360 losses. And yet for the year, they were plus, let's just say 3.5 units. Okay. Most people don't have the bankroll to handle 360 losses. Okay. So if you added them up, that was 660 total games. So if you're $100 bettor, and you're betting 660 Major League Baseball games, you had to be able to withstand 360 losses and only 300 wins to make 3 units.
Well, that's the point. The point of it is that whatever your strategy is, you have to stick to that strategy because it's all about math. And the math will prove itself over the course of 1,000 bets. It won't necessarily prove itself over the course of 10 bets or 5 bets or 20 bets. That's not nearly enough. You make 1,000 bets, it's going to start to show that the probabilities are correct. And that's where you got to kind of keep that in mind as you're making these wagers.
All right, Scotty, I'm going to move the board up to the NBA. We're going to talk some NBA for everyone here, and I want to make sure we give everyone enough time to hear your breakdown of the Tampa-Philly game.
Yeah, I originally looked at this Charlotte-Orlando game, and Orlando's got some trouble with the people suiting up tonight. And this game, I think the line this morning was 10.5. I think, 11 now? It hasn't moved dramatically, but 11's a lot in the NBA. But it's not a lot. It doesn't seem like when you got these guys that aren't playing. My numbers come out to 116-101, a win for Charlotte by 15 points. My numbers tell me that that's probably not the right direction to go. I'm not going to try to cover a 11-point game when they win by 15. I think that's too close. So that's a pass. That was one I looked at this morning that I knocked off the board. But it's interesting to look at that on an underside because my numbers say 217 and the number is 224. And it looks like it's been bet down a little bit. Now it's 223.5. So then you're following that trend a little bit, and that doesn't bother me to follow that. So that's one that you might want to look at is an under in that game. The game that I'm going to play, and I played 2 tonight. The first one is Atlanta plays Miami, and that number opened at 221 and -5. And that number really hasn't changed much since I looked at it at 8 o'clock this morning. It's 221, but it's now down to 4. And my numbers tell me that Miami should win that game by 8. And Atlanta is one of these teams that's been struggling, and they play very, very poor defense. So I like Miami at home tonight. I like them to cover the 4 points. I've got them winning by 8 in a game that's, could be contested here and matters. They just played each other not too long ago, 2 or 3 nights ago. And Atlanta got off to a relatively large lead and then got buried by Miami at the end. And this game was in Atlanta. So I like the idea that Miami is going to play well in that game. And the other one that I like is Memphis -2. That game opened this morning. It was -3.5. It was 216.5. Now it's -2. And I have Memphis with an 11-point win in that game. But the main reason for that is Memphis's defense is just a little better, and the pace of play is a lot better. So they go up and down the court, and Dallas doesn't go up and down the court nearly as much, and they don't play quite as well a defense. And we're going to talk about Memphis being at home in a game that I think that is a ripe spot for them. So I played 2. I played Miami -4, Memphis -2. I was looking for the underdog play today, and I couldn't find one. So those are I took 2 short favorites.
It's funny. We talked this afternoon on the midday market report with Riley, and this Memphis team, I think, has won 11 in a row, and they are just on fire. John Morant has just been in fuego. I remember about 10 days ago, ECSI had Memphis +2.5 in Dallas, and they won that game box to wire comfortably. Now, on the show this afternoon, Scotty, this line dropped to as low as 1.5, and there was some huge reverse line movement. It was 62% of the bets, 60% of the money was coming in on Memphis. Currently, as we speak, a line that opened at 3 that dropped all the way to 1.5 now is back to 2.5, and it's 2 -115 at our friends at the Circa. So it's bouncing around. And again, teams on big winning streaks, I don't like to jump in front of them. It's like a baseball team that's lost 7 in a row. You want to hold that golden ticket. You're like, I know this is the day. And guess what? They lose. And the same thing happens in any streak. If you haven't been involved in the winning streak, it's tough to jump on. And if you haven't been on the other side as well, you don't want to jump in front of that freight train. I always say this: if I didn't go to your wedding, I'm probably not going to your funeral. And Mike Francesa used to always say that on FAN. But I was seeing some huge line reversal on that on the Dallas side. So it'll be interesting to see. That's a 10-10 Eastern start there. What I noticed earlier last night is we send out an email to the subscribers on the weekends to about 25,000. The Celtics and Philly game, where that line opened at 3 and is now 3.5. Philly had a nice winning streak and was snapped on Wednesday against Charlotte. Maybe they were peeking ahead to Boston, and Boston now has put together 3 in a row. On December 13th, Philly came into Boston, small favorites, and beat the Celtics. So I thought initially that line was a little low. 55% of the bets, 62% of the money coming in on Philly. It's crept to 3.5. I think there's some actual value with the Celtics here. Maybe they can steal a win on the road and bounce back after their loss there to the Sixers at the Garden on the 13th. What do your numbers say on the Boston-Philly game?
The Boston-Philly game comes out to the score is 109-103. So 212, and the total was 212 at open. Now it's down to 207. So the numbers being bet under, and a 6-point win for Philadelphia, which is only 2.5 points different than what the line is. So that was a stay away game for me.
All right. And just creep down. In the college hoops today, it's kind of funny. It's a short menu. A few of these lines do not make any sense. I've talked to a few of our colleagues and family members here. This Monmouth team that's been on fire opened up 4.5-point favorites, now down to 3.5 at Circa, and now 4 across the Vegas Strip. A number that makes 0 sense. 72% of the bets, 59% of the money coming in on Monmouth. Yet that line has dropped a full point at Circa. So some reverse line movement on St. Peter's tonight. Iona and Manhattan. Iona has, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has played one game in like a month. Or the number here again looks like it's supposed to be a blowout, but I am not biting on a 15-point spread there. The big flip of the day. UNLV, Fresno State, 11 o'clock Eastern time, rotation number 897, 898. A game that opened up at a pick, a game that UNLV is getting 52% of the bets, 52% of the money. They opened up at a pick. Now Fresno State 1.5-point favorites at UNLV. So the sharper, heavier money coming in on Fresno State there. The last game that I wanted to highlight was VCU and St. Bonnie's. St. Bonnie's was the darlings last year. And this year they've been real slow starts out of the gate in the first half. They've been down a lot, and they've made some great comebacks and one going away. This game here, the Bonnies opened at 2.5, currently at 3. 54% of the bets, 53% of the money on VCU. So there is some reverse line movement on the Bonnies. That's a 7:30 p.m. start. Keep an eye on the VCU first half here. Like I said, the Bonnies have struggled coming out of the gate, and maybe VCU can get out early. You can get them right now plus 1.5. Your NHL we talked about already. The Colorado, obviously, minus the 650, which is kind of the comical line. Anaheim, Minnesota, opened at 200, minus 200 for the Wild, now minus 167. There is reverse line movement on the Ducks. You can get them at plus 152. And a slight movement on the Florida Panthers. They opened up minus 190, now minus 203. 64% of the bets, 82% of the money coming in on Florida. Again, these high numbers, I would never suggest playing them straight. If you're a parlay guy, take a look at them maybe on the money line, or again, if you wanted to dive into some puck line scenarios and get a little plus money, that would be the way to go there. So, Scotty, let's talk to everyone here, and anyone that is not following myself or Scott, go to EC Sports Invest for myself or Scotty at Webby20MLB on Twitter. Follow us. We'll follow you back, and jump on over to YouTube and Twitch at East Coast Sports Investors. Hit the subscribe button. Tell a friend, and turn on the notifications. You'll never miss a show. So I'm going to go over to the NFL right now for everyone, and you can take it away on your write-up on the Tampa and Philly game.
Well, I just wanted to get this out to the people that watch us and the people that listen to us. I don't want this to be something that is broadcast nationally to everybody. So it's not a broadcast that I'm putting on Twitter. I did put something out there that says, hey, if you want this information, send it to me, and I'll send it to you via email. I'm not going to do this because I think this is important. So number one, if you've noticed, the line, the total was 49.5, and now it's down to 46. So, and I've even seen 45.5 at some places. So people are betting this game under, and the reason they're betting the game under is the weather. The weather, if you go click on a button and you go to like NFLweather.com and you click the button and you look at it, it says 80% wet rain for this game. And the truth is, it is going to rain Sunday. It will rain. But I live here, and I sit here and watch our weather guys, and they go over it, and it is not going to rain at 1 o'clock. It could be raining or dying off as these guys are finishing the tailgate, but it will not be raining when this game goes, and the majority of this football game is going to be under dry conditions. The other thing that I will tell you is that it is expected to be windy, and wind does affect scoring. But of all players that can deal with the wind and deal with where they play. I mean, Tom Brady's used to that and playing in wherever, he's all played and all the games he's won. We've been up to Green Bay and in New England and all that stuff. I don't think there's going to be any issues with him there. So edge to the buck here when it comes to the weather. So a couple of notes on this game that I wanted to kind of throw out here because there's some big things here. The number one thing and the number one way you beat Tom Brady and to beat any team that he plays for is you got to move him off his spot. You got to make him uncomfortable and move around. So the adjusted sack rate for the offensive line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is number 1 in the NFL. The adjusted sack rate for the Philadelphia Eagles as a defense is number 28 in the NFL. There are 32 teams in the NFL, and if you're 28th in the NFL and you're going against the best pass blocking offensive line, I don't think Tom Brady's going to move around that whole lot. That means he's going to be pretty damn comfortable in the pocket, and that sets up bad already for Philadelphia. Just in those two statements, right? 1, no rain. 2, they're not going to put pressure on the quarterback. So those are big things. Now, these two teams played in October this season. The final score was 28-22. The line was Tampa Bay was -7 in that game. So on the road, they're -7. And at home, they're -8. Are you kidding me? So we're getting value at home. Now, the game total final score was 28-22, but that doesn't tell you the whole story of this football game. The story of the game was it was 28-14, a comfortable win for Tampa Bay. Until 5 minutes to go in the game, Philadelphia scored a touchdown. They went for 2, made the 2-point conversion. For some reason, they went for 2. Don't know why, but they did. And so it turned into 28-22 as a final score because Tampa Bay didn't need to go down and score anymore. So it was 28-22 was the final score of the game, a 6-point win for Tampa Bay. However, Tampa Bay had 399 yards total offense, might as well say 400. And Philadelphia had 213, might as well say 200. So it doubled the amount of yardage gained and doubled the amount of time they had possession of the football. They had possession of the football for 39 minutes, Jeff. And Philadelphia only had it for 20 minutes. So then you look at it from a perspective of first downs, and Tampa Bay had 27 first downs in that game, and Philadelphia had 16. So it was a totally dominant performance. They just didn't necessarily do it on the scoreboard. Now, could that happen again this week? Sure, anytime that it happens that way. But that's not what you're betting. You're betting the dominant teams. You're betting the teams that you think are going to cover these spreads. And then I backtracked it to the thing we talked about with Philadelphia. Philadelphia's wins, they have 9 of them. The average win per team that they beat was 5.88 wins. So the teams they beat were the bottom feeders in the league. They beat one team that had a winning record, one, and that was New Orleans. And that was with Trevor Siemian in his second start at quarterback, who went 0-4 as a starter for New Orleans. So that doesn't tell me much, but what does tell me a lot is they played San Francisco, Dallas, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Las Vegas Raiders, the Chargers, and Dallas, all teams that are either playoff teams or over 500, and lost every one of those games, every single one of them. So when they're playing the quality competition, they don't stack up. This is the first time head coach Nick Sirianni's in a playoff game. It's the first time Jalen Hurts is in a playoff game. I don't like their chances in this spot. So I went a little farther because I know that everybody thinks of Philadelphia as a running team, and they are. They're more of a running team than they're not. As a matter of fact, rushing the football over the last since week 10, they are 6th in the football. So that's not bad. That's actually pretty good. And Tampa Bay is 14th, so they haven't been able to stop the run. But there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that in a second. So then it comes to the pass offense of Philadelphia, and they rank 10th, and they're going to face the number 5 pass offense or defense of Tampa Bay. So if they're going to do anything, they're going to do it via the ground. Well, if you look at the statistics over the course of the season and not just the last since week 10, then you find that Philadelphia runs the ball at, I think the number was more like 12th. And then the stop unit for Tampa Bay is more like 7th. So they are better at stopping the run. And then when I looked at the way that they run the football, the Eagles, they run the ball to the left. Over the left tackle, they average 5.6 yards per carry. Over left guard, they average 4.9 yards per carry. But if you match up the Tampa Bay defense to where they can run the football, they have a 5.0 yards per carry against the left tackle, which is less than what the average offensive rushing the football, and then 3.3 against the left guard. And that's where you're going to run into some problems. The Tampa Bay defense matches up to what the strengths of the offense are for Philadelphia. And then if you're going to count on Jalen Hurts to try to win this football game, you got to understand that Jalen Hurts on short passes, he's got a success rate of only 47% and a passer rating of 88%. Now, in comparison to Tom Brady's got a 55% success rate and a 100.6% passer rating. Tom Brady's got 32 touchdowns with 8 interceptions on short passes, and Jalen Hurts has 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And it gets worse for Tampa or for Philadelphia when they throw deep. When they throw deep, Jalen Hurts 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 44% success rate, passer rating 81%. So I don't see a way in this game that Philadelphia can get to the numbers that they need to get to cover the spread. So if you look at the implied score of this game, what is it going to be? Like 20, where is it? It's like 27-19 or something like that. It's like 27-19. Isn't that the right number?
Yes.
So that means that Philadelphia's got to score 19 or 20 points in this game. They scored 22 the last time they played, and that was towards the end of the game, and they did what they did. They got their points. I don't know that they can get to that number, Jeff. And the other side to that is that Tampa Bay scored 33 points per game at home this year. And then I looked at it and said, okay, what did they do last year? Well, they scored 30 points per game at home last year. So this is a team that theoretically should score 30 points in this game. And then you're looking at a team that I think covers this 8-point spread pretty easily and wins by 2 touchdowns or at least 10. And I think that's the way you want to go with this game. And then the inside information basically is the weather conditions are not going to be nearly what I think the national public is making it out to be.
Our goal will be to be back tomorrow. There are 2 games on the board, LA at Cincinnati at 4:30 and the Patriots at Buffalo at 8:15.
That line's moving.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny. It's up to 5 now at the circa 4.5 everywhere else. I'm hearing the wind maybe 10, 15 miles an hour. There will not be 40, 50 mile an hour gusts there. The LA, Vegas, and Cincinnati game. I mean, there's some huge reverse line movement right now on the Raiders. That line's down to 5.5. It will be interesting overnight where that one goes. Kansas City still hanging around at 12.5. The Dallas is kind of now leaking towards it's going to go to 3.5. So if you want the Niners, hold off there. If you are a Dallas fan and you thought it was going to sneak to 2.5, it's not. Got an 8 at circa on the Tampa game, 8.5 everywhere else in Vegas, an 8 at DraftKings, but Caesars, Westgate with the 8.5s. And the Monday night game's a flat 4. DraftKings has a 4 -105 and Pinnacle 4 -101, which is telling us the next move there will be to 3.5. So
Bookmaker already went there offshore.
Yes, it did. Bookmaker is now at 3.5. So if you are betting Arizona, You better get it now at 4 because you might wake up tomorrow morning and it'll be 3.5 there. So our goal here simply is just to get you updated on what's going on in the market. Scotty's giving you some great information with Tampa and Philly in advance. If you want to follow that information and jump on board and buy it now, that's fine. Otherwise, myself and Scotty will be back tomorrow sometime in the morning to go over, or maybe in the afternoon. We'll figure that one out. To go over the 2 football games. I'll try to keep you updated on the NCAAB games. There'll probably be well over 100. Scotty, close it out. What were your 2 NBA games that you played?
I played today Miami Heat -4, and I played Memphis -2.
Okay, and right now, that Dallas-Memphis game isn't again till 10 o'clock. That line's been bouncing around. So if you are on that Memphis side, you can get a 2 now. If you're in Vegas at the Circa at South Point, it's 2.5 on a lot of the offshores. So keep an eye on that. I talked about the Celtics game, maybe a revenge factor. The Celtics have won 3 in a row. They're up to 3.5 now there. And then I talked about VCU first half. As we were on this air, Circa just dropped their number from 3 to 2.5. I know you can get 1.5s in the first half there on VCU. And then the big flip of the day, UNLV Fresno State, an 11 o'clock start. Huge reverse line movement on Fresno State. So if you were to play Fresno State, grab the money line. It's around 118 there. So from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Scotty Webb at Webby 20 MLB. This is our second show of the closing bell. Next week, again, Monday through Friday, we'll be here around that 4:30 closing bell time to get you updated. For everyone that works throughout the day that can't keep an eye on the market. For anyone working at home or on vacation next week, feel free to catch us on the breakfast bankroll in the morning, the midday market report in the afternoon, and of course, the closing bell. So always remember this: if you're wagering tonight, always wager with your head, not your heart. If you have a problem, pick up the phone. There is an 800 number available. Ask for help. Why? Because we care. We want you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, throughout 2022 and beyond. So always wager and invest responsibly. Stay in your lane, stay positive, and test negative. We will see you tomorrow.